LinkedIn attracts the highest income of all of the social media platforms, and it has the highest percentage of college-educated consumers. So depending on what you are selling and to whom, that would be an important piece of information to know. Not only because these are the people that can afford your service, but also because of how you create your marketing messages. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Crushing Chaos with Law Firm Mentor podcast, where today we're going to talk about social media marketing for law firms. Now, this is one of my favorite topics because I happen to love social media. Many of you found Law Firm Mentor on social media, and you know that it's a great way for people to connect, and it's a great way for people to share information, to gather together. And there are a lot of parasocial relationships that are completely created now online where you might have an entire relationship with a person and never meet them in person until years into that experience. In fact, one of the things that I enjoy, one of the most enjoyable things about being the law firm mentor is that I get to meet lawyers from all across the country. And oftentimes when I'm in a new city, all I have to do is go on social media and say, hey, I'm in San Antonio. Is anyone around for lunch? And poof, I get to meet new people just by virtue of doing that, right? So it really is a great way now that we as people, as a society, are connecting with other people. And hence, it does present a great opportunity for marketing for law firms. But there's always the but, right? We do have to be very strategic in how we use social media. And I see a lot of blitzring marketing from law firm owners, where they just kind of throw anything and everything out there and see what sticks when they are marketing online. They don't know what to say. They don't know what to ask. They don't know how to boost engagement. And it really becomes just an exercise in doing something because you were told you were supposed to do it, instead of using it as a very concerted, direct lead funnel into your law firm. So we're going to talk about some better ways to use social media marketing if you are a law firm owner. Now, before we dive into today's content, I am guessing that most of you are checking us out on our largest platform, which is YouTube. So if you are checking us out on YouTube, please do like, share, and subscribe to our channel so you can get more insights from the Crushing Chaos with Law Firm Mentor podcast. And then also, if you are checking us out on any of our other streaming platforms, of course, you know that we appear in lots of different places, and we are on all the podcast greats like Spotify, Stitcher, Google, Apple, etc. So if you're there as well, we do also want you to subscribe there so that you can, again, continue to get great information here about the business of law and scaling your law firm if you are a law firm CEO who desires to do that. All right. So let's dive into today's topic. So as I said before, we're going to be talking about some more strategic ways that you can use social media marketing. And there's some very critical things that you have to know to do it and do it well. So the first thing that I recommend when law firm owners are embarking upon social media marketing, or even looking to do it better, is to really understand your platform. Now, historically, you will hear marketers say that LinkedIn is for B2B, Facebook is for B2C. And there's still some truth to that. And I'll go tell you why in just a moment, but that really isn't categorically the case. In fact, you can grow quite a lucrative business by advertising on LinkedIn if you are doing B2C marketing. And there are lots of different ways to approach that. But when I say know your platform, that really is the key. Right? You're trying to find out where your people are. So that for those of you that have been around for any length of time, you know that we talk a lot about your ideal client avatar. And if you are interested in getting your own free worksheet on how to create your ideal client avatar, it's very simple to download that. You can get that at lawfirmmentor.net/avatar. And we have an entire worksheet on understanding the demographics, geographics, and psychographics of your ideal client. But one of the things that when we talk about the avatar and we talk about your geographics, we talk about where your people are, right? So if you're going to a party, you want to go to a party where your people are. If you're going to put something out in the world of marketing for people to consume, you want to put it where those people are likely to actually see it and not just put it out there and hope that someone happens upon it. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing about knowing your platform is knowing who is where. So there's some very interesting stats that I pulled, and this is public information. You all have access to it, but I thought I would compile it for you just to give you a little synopsis of where your people are and which type of people are on which platform. So the three most popular where law firm owners are marketing are Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. So let's talk about those. So first, Facebook is what I would refer to as a family-focused, community-oriented platform, right? We connect on Facebook around the things that are near and dear to us, the people that are in our lives, and the causes that we are most concerned with. That's the reason why a lot of people have decided that they want to leave Facebook, because what a lot of people are concerned about and very passionate about are politics, and politics has become a very divisive and hostile area of our public spaces. But there are still a lot of people on Facebook. Even the people that are saying that they are going to leave, they somehow stick around because they love posting those pictures of their dinner last night and little Timmy's graduation and so forth, right? But here's some basic stats that you should understand about who is on the platform. So first, its largest demographic is age 25 to 34, okay, at 23%. Now, you might say, that's not that great because I'm not serving mostly 25 to 34-year-olds. I serve an older demographic. And that might be true, but it's great to know that that is their strongest demographic, because when you're talking about the volume of people that are on Facebook, even their less strong, but still strong demographics can also be beneficial for you. So the next most populous area that is also very strong is the 35 to 54-year-old plan. And that is what most law firm owners, the sweet spot age-wise, that most law firm owners are targeting, unless they are targeting elderly populations, right? You don't normally find people that are going well outside of that range of 35 to 54 unless they're serving much higher. And again, that's the elder population, elder care, estate planning, etc. Or they're going much younger, like juvenile law. So think about that when you're thinking about where you're putting your messages. Now, the 55 and older category is actually the fastest growing demographic on Facebook. And that just makes sense if you think about it. Now we have more and more people who are working later in life. So the historical retirement age in the early 60s, not so much anymore. But as you reach 55, you might have a different phase of career. You might move into the types of careers where you have more free time. And you also might have more resources available to you. We know that most wealth is built between the ages of 45 and 60. So when you think about that 55 and older category, that might be where you're most likely to find people who can afford your service. And that might be something that you want to consider depending on the average case value that you are selling in your law firm. Gender-wise, it's split about 50-50, male and female on the platform. And I'm saying male and female, we know that non-binary and people who don't identify a gender are also on the platform. But just in terms of what Facebook is tracking and presenting to the public, gender being divided into the binary, please know that I'm not trying to omit anyone from that category, but just wanted to know what was available. All right. Next up is LinkedIn. Now, when we think about LinkedIn, most people, again, think B2B, but there are a lot of individual consumers who are in their own career space, marketing themselves, connecting with other people, creating networks for purposes of their own professional development, who are in need of various legal services from time to time. That could be a great opportunity for someone who is selling B2C on LinkedIn. So their core demographic on LinkedIn is between the ages of 30 and 49. Again, that overlaps the sweet spot on Facebook as well. But 30 to 49 being their target demographic tells you a few things. One, you're getting people who are rising in career, right? They've gotten their degrees. They're well into the career building stage of life. And you also are getting people who are at that wealth building stage and older who are still a part of that core. Again, more resources. And in terms of secondary actually trends younger. So secondary is 25 to 29. That's the next most populous demographic age-wise on LinkedIn. And then the 50 to 64 category is also rapidly growing. So again, you have opportunities there within all of these sects, but just think about that when you think about who you serve. Now, there are slightly more men on LinkedIn than women, at about 57% gender-wise. So, take that for what it's worth, depending on what you serve or what you sell and who you serve. That might be a relevant stat for you. But then the one that I think a lot of people are going to be interested in is the education and income strata. So LinkedIn attracts the highest income of all of the social media platforms, and it has the highest percentage of college educated consumers. So depending on, again, what you are selling and to whom, that would be an important piece of information to know. Not only because these are the people that can afford your service, but also because of how you create your marketing messages, right? Now, there are certain guidelines about at what level you should communicate when you are communicating online. It is not that if you are serving up messages to Mensa candidates, you should speak at the college level versus high school dropouts, you should speak at the third grade level. Not the case at all, because no matter someone's level of education and intellect, the way that we as a society are consuming information, now on average, you're going to get the advice that 8th grade level is about the level at which people want to consume and are going to consume more. So don't think that if you have a highly educated population of people that you're serving, that you should up level your language in terms of what you're writing. Not the case, right? You want to hit that sweet spot where the most people, even in your demographic, are going to consume the most of your content. So you don't want to overshoot your shot, even if you have a higher echelon of client. Okay. Last platform that we're going to talk about is Instagram. Instagram, of course, is the visual platform. So you're more likely to be able to get really provocative imagery to spur conversation, to evoke feelings, etc. Sometimes fear-based feelings. We know that people are more likely to buy based on avoiding pain than they are for seeking pleasure, right? That's one of the things we've covered in the many episodes that we have had about sales and sales techniques here on the podcast. But when you think about Instagram, think about 18 to 29-year-olds. That's the core demographic there at over 35%. So if you are marketing on Instagram and you're marketing to people who are younger, this is the place where you're going to get the most traction based on the stats of where people are. Also, Instagram does trend more female than male. Now, slightly different than LinkedIn. LinkedIn is at 57% male. Instagram is at 55% female. But that's a stat that's relevant to know because, again, depending on who you're serving and what you're selling, and also how you're crafting your messages, gender is something that could be quite relevant to your marketing efforts. Okay, so knowing your platform can give you a lot of strength. It can give you a lot of power in terms of knowing what to say, to whom, and where you're going to find your people. And when we say what to say, we're really talking about that psychographic piece of the avatar, right? You want to appeal to people based on who they are. What sorts of things appeal to them? What are they interested in? How do they like to spend their time? How are they politically oriented? And now in our world, we actually see quite a bit of gender-based division in how people are skewing their political discourse. So think about that when you think about the gender that is on a particular platform and how those messages that you may put on certain platforms are going to have more success based on who is on the platform versus not. All right. Second thing to consider about social media, right? So we talked a little bit about knowing your platform, but now I want you to keep in mind that social media has multiple uses. You should never think of social media as the place to go to achieve a particular outcome. There are actually multiple outcomes, and how you craft messages and what you post is going to vary depending on what those uses are for you. So the other thing that goes along with the differentiation of use is the immediacy versus lack of immediacy. We recently aired a podcast episode talking about the ROI that you get on Google ads versus search engine optimization. And this is another area when we talk about marketing and advertising on social media, that the immediacy factor is something that you have to keep in mind. because when you are driving people when you're finding people on social media, first of all, they're not usually going to social media to hunt for where their next lawyer is going to come from. So you're doing what's called a pattern interrupt, right? I'm over here doom scrolling. I'm looking for, I don't know, Cats of America or cute shoes, right? That might be something I'd search for. Whatever you're searching for, you're not searching most likely for your lawyer. And so ads for lawyers are interrupting, which is the reason why ads on social media do a better job of branding and longer term strategy than the immediacy of shorter term strategies. But you can be successful at both short term and long term strategies, both immediate hires as well as branding, if given the right traction, the right budget, the right ad, etc. Right? So you want to think about that. And with social media, you want to think about both branding and storytelling. So when we talk about branding on social media, this is who you are, right? What do you stand for? What differentiates you from another practitioner who is doing the same practice area? How do you do it differently? What is different about your core values, about how you do the service, how you deliver the service, the customer service experience that your clients are going to experience versus the experience they'd have at someone else's law firm? That's where you start talking about those things. Because again, people that are on social media are not there most often to hire a lawyer. They might choose to hire a lawyer if they get the right ad showed to them at the right time. But most people are not doom scrolling on Instagram because they're looking for a law firm, right? You just happen to be there. But if they happen upon your content and they start to learn about you, they might choose to follow your page because they're getting something of value from doing so. So you can start educating people about things like why they might need a prenuptial agreement or what difficulties they might encounter purchasing their first piece of commercial real estate, right? Those are things that might come to mind when people are contemplating a future purchase, right? Someone who is in a relationship that they think is going to result in marriage, they might have prenup on their mind, but they're not in need of one right now. But if you put the right piece of content in front of them to educate them, they start to see you as the trusted source. And that gives you an opportunity to not just attract them on social media, but again, use certain strategies to get them into your pipeline. Use strategies to get gated content in front of them where they have to trade their email address for whatever piece of content you're delivering so that they can then learn more. And then when they are ready, they know that you're the trusted source that they want to hire. Right? So branding has a value. And in social media, this is a much more common way of branding, by the way, than advertising, than paid ads on digital platforms. But when you're using social media for this purpose, you're connecting with people at the person level, right? So if somebody goes to Google, oftentimes they are directly searching for what it is that you do. And they might get to your website and they might not be at the place where they're hiring, right? They might just be contemplating. I think I am interested in acquiring a cannabis dispensary, so I need a cannabis lawyer, right? But I don't know what they do. I don't know how much time it's going to take. I don't know what the cost is going to be. I don't know what kind of services they can help me with. So they might be in the learning stage and you can then educate them and then ultimately become that trusted source for them. But in so doing, there's traction that you can get there that you might not otherwise be able to get because they're relating to you as a person. Right? They're on social media, they're doom scrolling and they see an advertisement or they happen upon a page because they followed something similar and your page gets promoted to them, or they happen upon your page because they click on something and it leads them there. And then they're like, this person is posting about something interesting. And then they get to see you as a human and they get to say, I'm interested in that. This person shares my values. This person shares my politics. This person shares my interest in sports. This person shares my interest in animals. Whatever it is, the human to human interaction increases that know, like, and trust factor that is so critical in marketing to get people warmed up on you before they actually meet you. Now, the storytelling piece is really where a great opportunity exists for lawyers because when we're on our website, again, websites should be written In the same vein as social media, it is about the client. It is not about you. But your law firm website does need to educate people about you in terms of what is your expertise and what do you serve, who do you serve, and what do you sell. They need to understand that there. Social media can be much more about just the human experience, right? Because when we're on social media, we're connecting as people. So if I'm happening upon a business website, I want to know who are the people and what did they get out of working with you, right? If I go to a restaurant's social media page, I don't want to know the origin story of the restaurant owner. I don't really care that you grew up in a little town in Butte, Montana. That might be a fun fact, but I don't really know you like that, right? But if I see some really mouth-watering food and then I hear people talking about what a cool environment it is and how great the live music is, then I'm drawn in at the human experience of, I want to have that kind of experience too. Same thing available to you as a law firm owner, right? So you can be marketing the stories of your clients. Of course, little caveat, make sure that you're doing that ethically. Do not disclose something that you don't have the authorization to disclose. So be careful there. But you can talk about things in generalities, and you can do so in a way that does not disclose who your clients are, but that really shows how you were able to help facilitate a great outcome for someone. And to the extent that you can get your clients to directly participate, to the extent that you can get your clients to record videos and tout you, or to the extent that your clients consent to take pictures with you, either at the courthouse or at the closing or at the negotiation table where they get whatever it is that they came for and they're happy about that, you are telling a story that is going to be compelling for a future buyer. Right? Because again, it's then not about you. It's about what you helped to facilitate for someone else, the same way that you would presumably help to facilitate that outcome for your future client. All right. Third thing that we have to understand about social media marketing, and this is going to trigger a whole lot of law firm owners, but there's just no way around this. You have got to be consistent. Now, I say this is going to trigger a lot of people because even though intellectually, we all understand that posting at the same time, the same week, or the same number of times a week is going to be better than doing it randomly. A lot of people would immediately have the thought of, I don't have time to do it consistent, right? I don't have time to do it every Tuesday at 12 o'clock. I don't have time to post 15 times a week. There are ways to make social media marketing more consistent that do not have to take up substantially more time. But here's the thing. You have got to get to the habit of doing this consistently, because if you don't, the times that you are posting, unless something really miraculous happened, and this is the 1 in a million random inability to plan for, inability to pay for, inability to determine in the future or in the current, right? This is the wing and the prayer, right? Let's just do it and hope something works. Unless you get to that very rare event where something you post goes viral and all of a sudden you get a lot of eyes and ears on you, most likely people will see a great message and then they will forget it, right? You want to create consistency so that people come to expect a cadence. Now, you might be thinking, most people are not going to set their watches and tune in on Tuesday at 12 o'clock, every Tuesday at 12 o'clock to your law firm Facebook page or your law firm Instagram account. And that's true. But what ends up happening is that even though people might not consciously be aware of the cadence of your posting, what tends to happen over the course of time is that it starts to run in the background to the point where people can actually miss it when they don't see it. You would be surprised how many times if you actually ask your clients when they come in, well, they're your prospects when they first come in, but before they become a client, when they have that first consultation, you ask the question, where did you find us? Sometimes they will know. Sometimes they will say, oh, I happened upon your YouTube channel when I was looking for information about X, and then I followed the channel, and then I subscribed, and then I started getting my every Wednesday 12 o'clock news you can use post, right? So that could be a way. But much more often than not, people will just say, Google, right? Whether that's true or not. So you might be thinking, well, if people are just going to say it's Google regardless, how will I really know if I get traction? And here's the reason why you'll know. you will be able, if you are tracking your marketing appropriately, if you're tracking it consistently, and if you get into the habit of consistent traction, you will start to see leads, one, become more frequent, and two, become better nurtured when they come in for a consult. You will start to be able to detect a distinction. And I say this is premised upon great traction and great tracking. So what do I mean by that? Well, first, the great traction. You get great traction by virtue of the snowball effect, right? So you're posting and the posts are feeding each other, i.e., you'll start to see that you get more and more likes and shares off of certain types of content. And the more likes and shares you have, the more that type of content will be shown to people when they go onto that platform, which will then snowball into people seeing more of your content, which will then nurture them faster. In terms of tracking, the thing that's really important to note is when you start to see that you are getting more engagement, what you want to do is then lean into the things that people are engaging with you about, right? Your audience will give you feedback if you give them information. And so the more you are posting and the more consistent your posting is, the more information you're able to glean from what your people's reactions are, right? When you post on Tuesdays, you get more people to pay attention than when you post on Fridays. Or when you post about topic X, you get more traction than when you post about topic Y. Or one post will feed to another post. People will come for the first post that's about X, and you've identified that it is a series, and you will see that you'll get an increasing number of people on video number 5 than video number 1, because now they've tuned in for video number 1 and you've picked up more people along the way. And somebody who joined for video number 2 missed video number 1 and they'll go back and watch it. And so you start to pick up more content consumption. The thing that's really important to understand is it doesn't feel in the moment like you're doing anything. And that's the part that's really hard. A lot of people are like, well, I'm posting, but nothing's happening. Or, I feel like I'm, shouting into an echo chamber, or, I feel like I'm, just kind of throwing out my great genius to the wind and no one's doing anything with it. And it could be you're on the wrong platform, or it could be that the message that you're putting out is not resonating, right? So there's going to be a period of trying and testing out different things. But if you get to the point where you're filing a little bit of energy, right? You're just like, okay, I see that. I'm just going to file that away in the back of my mind that I have some energy right there. And then you start moving in the direction of that energy. Ultimately, what ends up happening is the consistency of that will feed a particular audience, and that will get you more traction. And the more traction you develop naturally, organically on different platforms, the more, again, your message will be shown to similar audiences, both the people who tuned in before as well as others based on their viewership behavior. That is where you start getting traction. That's where you start stacking your opportunity. That's where you start getting more for putting out less. And you don't get to that unless you get to consistency. Now, one little trick about consistency. I know for those of you that are watching, you are busy law firm CEOs and you're thinking, I don't have time to add one more thing to my plate. Here is where you really want to go back to some of our older episodes where we talk about mass producing content, right? Because we've talked about this a lot on this podcast. You really want to get to a place where one piece of content can be broken up into many different pieces and then can be fed into a scheduler like Buffer or Hootsuite or MeetEdgar. Those different scheduling software will allow you then to sit down and in one fell swoop create a lot and put it out into multiple places over the course of time, so that you don't have to every Tuesday at 12 o'clock stop your life and go post something. You can schedule your content to go out every Tuesday at 12 o'clock, right? And there are lots of different ways that we're going to be able to mass produce content. But the thing that's most important is that you recognize that you are consistent in the process. So if you only have 4 pieces of content, then you want to drip that at the same time every single week, same time, same day, etc. And then you start to build more digital assets. And over the course of time, all these digital assets that you have posted somewhere, you can repurpose and post in other places. right? Because the way that we post on Facebook looks different than the way that we post on LinkedIn, which looks different than the way that we post on Instagram. So you want to be thinking about that, but the consistency is the major part. That's where you really get traction. All right, everyone. We have been talking today about social media marketing for law firm owners. We've been giving you some of the tools you can use in order to get better at social media marketing. And I look forward to seeing you on our next episode.